But all that they really need is a solid script, not written by committee, a good script, and maybe like a 4-year-old to call the scientific inaccuracies that we're about to mention, right? Like, it couldn't hurt to have a good science consultant and directors and producers that will listen to them, because there was quite a bit in terms of, hits and misses in this movie. And we've already done some of this, but maybe we can just kind of rapid fire through some of the things we haven't mentioned yet in terms of the balls and strikes, if you will, of the scientific content. And so was there anything that jumped out to you that was painful?
Well, it was funny because we first meet Martin Krebs in a traffic jam in New York. That's, the scene here. And the radio says the problem is that we've got a brachiosaurus that is loose, right? Got out of the zoo or whatever. Yeah. And when we see it, it's not the Jurassic World, Jurassic Park brachiosaurus. It's an apatosaurus. Now, I know there's going to be people like, come on. I mean, you guys, you're just no. Again, like you said, 4-year-old who knows there's dinosaurs is going to say that's wrong. But the worst part is this is canonically wrong. This is a canonical Jurassic World apatosaurus or diplodocus, like whichever one they want to call it. I think it's apatosaurus in this, but it's in Dominion. It's clearly not a brachiosaurus. They look different. They're different kinds of animals. So you get brachiosaurus in Jurassic Park, the first one, when they all stop and look and stare.
The first dinosaur that you see is actually a brachiosaurus.
And that scene was fantastic. Carried it. It was believable. And this time you look at it and you're like, if you've watched any of the other movies, you're like, that's not the right animal. So like strike one comes in fast, right? Yeah. And strike two comes in right after that when you've got the museum scene and Harry Loomis is saying, okay, we're going to need DNA from 3 dinosaurs. And he points and he says, the first one is the Mosasaurus. You're laughing.
Right out the gate, I was like, no.
And, I've got my Jurassic World Dominion Pez dispenser with a Mosasaurus on it. And I got to let your folks in on this. Like, I did my dissertation on Mosasaurs. These were my guys, right? Yeah. Mosasaurs are lizards. Like, honest to goodness lizards. Now, they're big, not as big as Jurassic World makes them. They're 10 to 50 feet long. They're terrifying. They're some of the biggest things that have ever been in the ocean. And they're not dinosaurs. No. Never have been dinosaurs. Somebody says, oh, that's a swimming dinosaur. The 4-year-old says, no, it isn't.
No.
Right? So for the paleontologists.
Out of the mouths of babes, right? Yeah.
For Henry Loomis to point and say our first dinosaur is the Mosasaurus, my soul died just a little bit. Actually, more than a little bit, when that happened. And
I do have to quickly show off.
I
do have to very quickly, as long as we're on Mosasaur, show off my shirt. Audio podcast. Sorry, guys.
Oh, sweet.
I don't know if you can see it. This is my Paleontology Club shirt from School of Mines, and it's got a cowboy riding a Mosasaur. Cowboys of Science. Anyway.
That's right. I mean, they got a beautiful Mosasaur right there at the museum in South Dakota. Wonderful. That's where I started studying Mosasaurs, was over there. Mm-hmm. And strike two comes in like 15 minutes. I'm like, this is not going to go well. This is not. And then
30 seconds after that, he says, Titanosaurus. And the other dinosaur we need to get is Quetzalcoatlus. Same mistake. So strike 3. Pterosaur, not dinosaur. Yeah. Embarrassing.
And never mind that Titanosaurus might not actually be a taxonomically valid creature at all. That's okay.
That might be hair splitting, but the rest, that's, yeah.
Yep, but the one dinosaur that they've picked is actually a problematic one in its own right. It's like, well, I suppose that's par for the course here. Now, kind of going through what critters do we see? We see the Spinosaurs come in next, along with the Mosasaurus, and I'll get to the Mosasaurus in a minute. But the Spinosaurus, that was done really well. They were cool. It's for those who did see Jurassic Park 3, and that's not a huge number of people, as I said, right? That movie got panned. It's going to look very different from that one, because what we've learned in the scientific paleontological community about Spinosaurus has changed dramatically, continues to change. Spinosaurus is one of the most problematic animals to try and figure out how it was living. But it seems like this thing is at least semi-aquatic. It's basically a dinosaur trying to be a crocodile. Plus a giant fin on its back, but it's got this really deep tail. that could probably scull the water back and forth. And so the animation for this is good. So
Yeah.
this was a solid base hit, if not a double, I would say. On well, it's not a double because there's no way Spinosaurus is actually out in the open ocean helping Mosasaurus hunt for food.
Yeah, that made no sense.
Yeah,
But
I'm rounding first. I'm looking at it, but it turns out that the shortstop made just a wild play, kept it in bounds. I got to take my single, but I'm on base with that.
there you go.
But yeah, and even when you see them in comparison to the Mosasaur, it's just unbelievable because the Mosasaur is on screen like 3 times bigger than these things. Like, why would you need their help in hunting people McNuggets, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people were not that much to eat for these guys. They need whales. They need that Dunkleosteus, right? They need some sizable food. I never understand why the dinosaurs spend so much effort trying to get us. It's fun, but not making a lot of sense. For the Mosasaurus itself, this one ended up being a foul tip, and it's too bad because like the first time we see Mosasaurus in Jurassic World, it's modeled really well and it's impressive and it jumps out of the water, right? It eats the shark. Now it's like twice as long as as the biggest Mosasaurus in history. And I remember being just nerding out watching it, and it just my stupid nerd mind is going like, oh, the average great white shark is about 13 feet long, and this animal's jaw is like, okay, well, it's a little large, but okay, even if I go in canon, this is an oversized Mosasaurus, it's fine. When you watch it and it's going 25 knots right next to the boat, right? I mean, the boat and it are screaming along. The tail is not moving at all. It's absolutely dead straight, like Jaws's fin in the water. And the reason that this matters for your moviegoers that are once again thinking like, are the paleontologists really going to do like, yeah, we got to do this because this animal doesn't swim with its flippers. It doesn't dog paddle really fast, right? It's not Fezzik.
Only dog paddle.
Only dog paddle. Right? It needs its tail to actually pump back and forth like a crocodile or like a shark. And as it's going, the stupid fin is just beelining it through the water. I lean over to my phone and go, how is it moving?
It's got a little propeller underneath or something. Yeah.
I'm actually wondering if Dr. Nefario outfitted it with a fart gun. And we had something like that. We need some sort of underwater fart gun propulsion for this thing. So there's that. Yeah. So those are some of my first ones. Why don't you pick up from here? What else are we seeing as we're moving our way through the film?
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of, in terms of balls and strikes, right? I will say that I really did appreciate the Spinosaurus update. And that's where some of the other mistakes frustrated me so much because I'm like, they actually did a really good job with this update. That accurately updates based on our current understanding, whereas where it was in 2001. One thing that just as a professor who mostly teaches biology, I was actually really excited when they said the word mutualism, even though I have no clue how what they're doing is mutualism. They used the right term. He said, it's mutualism. And then he called it symbiosis. And I was like, close, mutualism's more correct. But I was just glad to hear someone use the right term for once. But yeah, the Brachiosaurus thing, it just drove me nuts. My big gripe with this actually comes down to the entire premise. The entire premise is we need DNA from living dinosaurs. And they even ask like twice. They're like, so why do we need it from living dinosaurs? Because I'm thinking that it's possible that the screenwriters haven't seen the movie Jurassic Park. Because the entire premise was, we actually can use DNA from extinct dinosaurs, bring back dinosaurs. I'm like, so you can't get a tissue sample from a living dinosaur. You need to get it from, or, like a recently dead dinosaur. You actually have to get it from a living dinosaur, even though the whole reason that living dinosaur is a living dinosaur is because you got DNA from an extinct dinosaur. So there's that.
Clearly, you have a dizzying intellect.
And well, wait till I get going. The other thing was, okay, so they need DNA from them because they live over 100 years. First of all, I don't know how true any of that is. The life expectancies on these, how could we know that? I sure don't. But, okay, are there not animals now that live over 100 years? Galapagos tortoise, sea turtles, Greenland sharks. There's 3 right there. Greenland sharks live like 400 years.
How about really old people?
Yeah. There's that. Yeah.
Could you go find a centenarian and just take a blood sample? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I
it would be
have no
human.
idea.
That would help.
I have no idea how helpful pterosaur blood is going to be at fixing human heart disease.
But we didn't even get pterosaur blood. That was another interesting gripe. Is that we had blood samples from the mosasaur and from the Titanosaurus. But then when it came to getting something from the pterosaur, all of a sudden, what do we need? Egg white. We need egg white. I'm like,
nice low cholesterol alternative to the blood.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived through the 90s when we had those omelets. They weren't good.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait a minute, why do you need a syringe with a hole the size of my finger, like going into this egg? Like that's rough.
That egg's not going to be okay. But the other, just as another nitpick, when they're trying to kind of write some gobbledygook to explain why they can't just use the DNA, they're like, oh, because we can't synthesize the genes, something, hemoglobin deteriorates. And I'm like, hemoglobin's not a gene, it's a protein. Also, in an earlier Jurassic World movie, one of the children explains the mechanism whereby hemoglobin can stick around. Right? Or maybe not hemoglobin, but soft tissue can stick around, which is a whole, like, we won't get into that right now. But there's at least some awareness in this world of the people who've been involved in these movies that, like, proteins can stick around for a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, just that whole, like, and in that case, those were all plot pivotal points. So that drove me kind of nuts. Anyway, sorry. I'm sure there's more fossil stuff.
It falls in your court for some of these. What did you think of the T-Rex?
I liked the swimming. I thought that was really cool. I'm trying to think what else was different about it. I mean, I liked that it wasn't practical. One gripe about this movie was there wasn't much in the way of practical effects, if any. Actually, I don't think there were any practical effects done in this movie, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me that they're all going after such small morsels. I don't know. What were your thoughts on the T-Rex?
Yeah. Initially I came out of it and went, the T-Rex scene was entirely forgettable, right? It was literally just to move us along. Like, if that's what the team was doing. They were moving along in the river. The T-Rex was moving along. We ran out of red shirts, so there wasn't anybody to eat, right? You knew at this point that the family's entirely safe. And so I'm not worried about them.
The little girl's not going to get it. Yeah. Right.
I mean, there's no way that can happen. And also the T-Rex, I think, even was bigger than it needed to be. Just one of the things that just kept happening in this film is everything was just so dang big. Mosasaurus is enormous. I know it's Jurassic World canon. Fine. The kaijus are just D-Rex is too big. The Titanosaurus is impossibly large. I mean, sauropods are already big, and in Jurassic World we've got these big things. They're already very impressive. But this thing is the size of like the Chrysler building. It's just unfathomably large. And I think that makes it difficult for the audience when all of a sudden, like, I lose scale, I lose perspective, I lose believability because this thing is so huge. Like, its tail is like 80 feet long and whipping around and doing all these cool things, which, I'm looking at it going, it's not the way that a Titanosaurus tail is going to work anyway, because they're built more like brachiosaurs with long but shorter tails than, say, like the Apatosaurus and the Diplodocus tails are. So not going to expect that. But also, that was a funny thing. We talked about the tall grass, right? We get into the tall grass and we're all worried. You and I are worried about raptors. And then all of a sudden something happens and these gargantuan titanosaurs apparently rise up out of the tall grass.
Yeah, the tail rises up, and you're like, "Oh, that's really cool." And how did you miss that thing right there?
How did you miss the 3-story building that it would be laying down on the ground? Like the tall grass is shoulder high, so it can hide raptors. It can't hide something that is 30 feet tall at the shoulder. This was. I remember just kind of like laughing out loud. My wife actually, when she saw the Spinosaurus, there's one brief moment where you see it on the beach. And then it slides out into the water. My wife actually leaned over. She's like, "Oh, that was really cool. Did you see that?" I was like, going back to, yeah, they modeled that one really well. And then when you get to these other things, you're like, wow, they really didn't do it.
Hmm.
I thought the Quetzalcoatlus was modeled fairly well until it had to go rock climbing. Um,
Mm.
it's probably not going to happen. Um, its facial structure for paleontology wasn't quite right, probably, but
That's
that's more inside poker on that one. I'll give them some
yeah.
latitude there. We don't have complete fossils for that one,
And the
and
size was they cranked the size way down on it,
yeah,
right?
they had to fit it in the cave, I
They had to
guess.
fit it in the cave. They could have made the cave bigger. But I did think that was interesting because, like, well, we just saw Quetzalcoatlus in Jurassic World Dominion at actual size, taking
Yeah,
down a plane. One of the best scenes in any of the Jurassic movies, I think. And so, yeah, I was seeing it. I was like, well, the skull is shaped different. The size is different. Is it possible they got the wrong pterosaur here? Uh,
yeah.
so that
I
was
I
my
even
concern.
thought
But I'm glad you helped confirm that it was more accurate than I thought it was. They just made it smaller. So good to know.
I think so. The one thing that was a little weird again was the crest on the face, and when I first saw that in the museum when he pointed out our third dinosaur, um, I remember going like, Quetzalcoatlus doesn't have like this big huge crest on the front of its face. Like it's part of a group in paleontology called the Asdarchids, and they've got fairly long thin beaks as far as I know.
Mm.
Like really really long beaks. But okay, they're going to do it, but it actually when I finally saw it on screen, I wasn't even sure if it was the same face as what was in the museum earlier in the movie.
Interesting. Huh.
I think I'm wrong on that, but it didn't quite look, I think, quite there. That's for that.
Yeah.
So those are the real dinosaurs, right? That's
Yeah.
the stuff. And we've got our cute little ceratopsian that ends up running around in a backpack. So we've got kind of Dora the Explorer dinosaur edition
Yeah.
happening, which was cute and all. We get a moment with a raptor, but it immediately gets eaten by the mutodon, right? So as we think like what didn't work, I already mentioned the D-Rex is a kaiju. The mutodon is this raptor pterosaur hybrid, and it's just weird. It doesn't work. I know it was menacing enough. It was certainly they worked on it as fairly well as being a menacing creature. It was terrifying.
Mm.
This thing comes out of the air and takes out a raptor, apparently quite violently off screen. It doesn't sound good.
And then drags it away, even though it's roughly the same size. It flies off with it. But mutants, whatever, right?
All you have to do is say genetically modified organism, and physics need not apply in your film.
Yeah, exactly.
And that although same problem was in the original Jurassic World when you had a pterosaur come down and was trying to grab onto a little triceratops, a baby triceratops. Like this baby triceratops is weighing like 250, 300 pounds. It's a little porker. And you got like this probably 60-pound pterosaur that's lifting it off the ground. Like physics just don't work that way.
Well, and I feel like we'll go ahead and give a little shout out to our friend Matt McLean, as he would point out whenever he talks about pterosaurs that they can't grab with their feet.
Right.
In general, right? Like they're just, it'd be like us grabbing something with our toes, maybe a little, but you're not grabbing anything substantially with it. And yeah, I watched Jurassic Park 3, and man, the pterosaur scene is awesome. But yeah, they're grabbing stuff with their feet. But otherwise, that scene is excellent. And yeah, there's just an awful lot of that kind of nonsense in here. I think, in terms of the scientific accuracies, inaccuracies, much longer list of inaccuracies. Any last minute stuff on that before we crack the soda on the theology side?
Well, I don't know if this movie is going to end the Jurassic World franchise or not. Part of me sort of hopes that it does, because, they had two paleontologists who were their, consultants on this film. At least it's listed as Stephen Brissett, who's a great paleontologist, absolutely outstanding paleontologist, and Tom Holtz, very good paleontologist, really, really good. He's got a textbook on dinosaurs. And I
was going to say if my Brissett book was nearby, it's not.
Mine's at the other office. I mean, these guys are both excellent, not only paleontologists, dinosaur paleontologists.
Yeah.
And no doubt they consulted them, and it's a movie, right? So you're going to get latitude. You're going to say, okay, we're going to make these things bigger. We want to give the sauropods these weird little frills on the back, which may or may not be a nod to Godzilla films where there is a Titanosaurus that has like this big weird lizardy frill on its back. So if you go back to the old Godzilla films and whatnot, you get Titanosaurus and it's got this bizarre frill. So it's got a couple of those, and you can say, okay, that's fine. You know, I can do that. You want to make them giant? It reduces my believability, but if you want to do it, it's okay. But it also, you know, just hits me that there's so many ways in which this movie didn't consult people who knew what was going on. Spielberg, you know, he knew how to do this job, and he knew how to get people on board to make these things such that that first time that you see them in the movie, when I was there back in, you know, 3,000 years ago, Gandalf, and you could just about believe that dinosaurs were brought back to life. It was, you know, the technology jump for that movie from everything past was that big.
Yeah.
But Spielberg also, as you mentioned, with practical effects, right? He mixed the CGI with the practical. He knew that CGI wasn't going to be able to carry the day. Now our CGI can carry the day, but they just rely on it too much. They decide we're just going to make what we want. We want to mute it on. Okay. I don't know how much they consulted the paleontologists for that one, because that one had a lot of weird features to it. Mm-hmm. The D-Rex, we're going to consult other movies from different universes. We need a little bit of Star Wars. We need a little bit of Alien. We need a little bit of who knows what else. I don't know. You know, Cthulhu, something. So I just, it seemed to me like it was lazy. Yeah. It was lazy in ways that even Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, as much as I didn't find them compelling, those movies weren't lazy about what they were doing. This movie, I think, was lazy.
We hope you enjoyed this snack-sized taste of popcorn theology. Check out the full episode using the link in the description. Subscribe on YouTube for more content. Follow and interact on social media to share with others. And remember, you are not a mindless consumer.